If you want a simple way to cut fat, this guide will help. A low-fat diet plan shows you how to lower saturated fat, the type that raises LDL cholesterol. You will learn what to eat, what to limit, and how to make smart swaps without losing flavor. This step-by-step plan offers clear tips, label checkpoints, and easy meal ideas. Start today and take charge of your health with a plan that fits real life. Key takeaways. Keep fat to 30% or less of daily calories. For a 2,000-calorie diet, limit saturated fat to under 13 grams, per the American Heart Association. Cut foods high in saturated and trans fat, like butter, fatty meats, whole milk, and processed snacks. This helps lower LDL cholesterol and heart disease risk. Build meals around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, low-fat dairy, and healthy unsaturated fats from olive oil and fish, following USDA guidance. Use low-fat cooking methods such as grilling, baking, steaming, or poaching instead of frying to reduce added fat. Read labels. Choose products marked green for 1.5 grams saturated fat or less per 100 grams to meet limits and support weight control. What is a low-fat diet plan? A low-fat diet plan limits the fat you eat each day and centers meals on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein. Many experts, along with the dietary guidelines for Americans, recommend this approach to reduce saturated fat and support heart health. What does a low-fat diet mean, and what are its goals? A low-fat diet limits total fat, and especially saturated fat, in your meals. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2020 to 2025 suggest getting no more than about 30% of calories from fat. Foods are considered low-fat if they provide less than 3 grams of total fat per 100 calories. Focus on limiting foods rich in saturated or trans fat, such as bacon, butter, fatty beef, and creamy sauces. The main goal is to lower LDL, called bad cholesterol. Doing so can reduce the risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, and other chronic conditions. While you reduce unhealthy fats, include small amounts of healthy, unsaturated fats. Olive oil, nuts, and fish provide these benefits. Keeping fat modest can also help with weight control because fat has more calories per gram. Knowing your daily fat range makes meal choices easier. Next, see how to set targets you can track. How much fat should you consume daily on a low-fat diet? Aim to keep total fat to about 30% or less of daily calories, based on guidance from the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health and Human Services. On a 2,000-calorie plan, that equals roughly 65 grams of total fat each day. Saturated fat should be lower. The American Heart Association suggests 5 to 6% of calories from saturated fat, which is about 13 grams for most adults on 2,000 calories. UK guidance is similar, with daily saturated fat limits of about 30 grams for men and 20 grams for women. Use nutrition labels on dairy, bread, spreads, and cereals to track saturated fat and make steady progress. Cutting high-fat items like full-fat milk, fatty cuts of meat, pizza, fried foods, and salty snacks can lower both total and saturated fat. This supports cardiovascular health and weight management. Limiting saturated fat to under 13 grams per day supports heart health, says the American Heart Association. Understanding the benefits can motivate you to stick with these choices. Benefits of a low-fat diet. A low-fat diet plan can strengthen heart health and improve food energy balance. As you add more fruits and vegetables, you may see steadier weight and better metabolic health. How does a low-fat diet improve heart health? Reducing fat, especially saturated fat, can lower LDL cholesterol, a clear risk factor for heart disease. The American Heart Association and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services report that heart disease remains a leading cause of death in the United States. Choose lean proteins and low-fat dairy instead of fatty meats and full-fat dairy. This shift decreases cholesterol-raising fats. Loading your plate with fruits and vegetables while skipping fried foods also trims sodium and saturated fat. Studies show that fewer calories from fat can improve blood flow and reduce cardiovascular risk. Diet plans like DASH encourage roasting, grilling, or baking rather than frying. Many people see better cholesterol numbers within weeks of consistent changes. Can a low-fat diet help with weight management? Lower dietary fat can support weight control. Fat has 9 calories per gram, while protein and carbohydrate have 4. USDA guidance also recommends limiting saturated fat to less than 10% of daily calories for better health. Reducing fat helps lower total calories, making it easier to reach a healthy weight. High-fat diets combined with low activity often raise obesity risk. Choosing low-fat dairy, lean meats, and plenty of produce gives you nutrients with fewer calories. Baking instead of frying also helps keep meals lighter. Reducing total daily fat intake leads to greater calorie control and helps support healthy body weight. These changes can support heart health while you manage long-term risk. Does a low-fat diet reduce the risk of chronic diseases? Research links higher intake of saturated fat with increased risk of several cancers, including breast and colon. Lowering saturated and trans fats, as USDA suggests, may reduce those risks. Replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat, found in nuts and plant oils, can lower LDL cholesterol. This supports heart health and may aid disease prevention. I shifted to a low-fat plan focused on whole grains, produce, and reduced fat dairy due to a family history of diabetes. Over time, my blood pressure and cholesterol improved. My clinician noted fewer risk factors on follow-up tests. Meals based on DASH principles, non-fat milk, and ample vegetables can protect long-term health. How does a low-fat diet affect metabolic health? Reducing saturated fat can improve insulin response and help prevent metabolic syndrome, a group of risks that includes high blood pressure, high triglycerides, and abdominal fat.